Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T.H.O. Movie Reviews podcast, the show where we bring you passionate, honest, and insightful film criticism. I'm your host, Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and I'm here today with some of my wonderful colleagues at the Lucky Lab, where we are doing what we are calling a State of the Movie Union podcast. It's a chance for us to, now that it's about halfway through the year, sit down, talk about, trends in the movies this year, in the film industry in general, and really break it down and get to the heart of it. But before we get into all that, I'd like to introduce my wonderful colleagues, starting with Mo Shaunette. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing okay.
Yay!
I don't know. I have nothing else to say.
That is okay.
I'm here.
We're all going to talk plenty about movies.
Let's talk about some movies.
What about you, Patrick? How are you?
I'm doing great. Always excited to talk about movies.
Oh gosh, me
no
too.
matter
And I am excited to talk about this year in general because it's already been, I think, a pretty stellar
It's been
year.
a heck of a year.
It has been a heck of a year, yeah. Actually, it's been a good year for pretty much only movies and nothing else in the world.
Maybe
so.
that's why movies have been so good.
That's true, by default, yeah.
Just that escapist quality of it. It's like the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
Absolutely.
Let's go see Wonder Woman.
You're going to get no argument from me. Well, I should also let you know that our colleague Maxwell Myers is going to be joining us in a bit, so he will slip in when the time is right.
We're very impatient.
Always. But first of all, let's get down to the basic, most straightforward, but one of the most interesting questions that we're tackling today, and it's, what is your favorite film of 2017 so far? Patrick, what's yours?
Damn it. This always happens to me whenever I try to think about it. I just
I can
blank out.
relate.
I know I've seen one or two really good movies, but the fact that I can't just conjure up one right away without thinking about it too much means that nothing really jumped out at me, I suppose. But
Kind of a lukewarm year for you so far, maybe?
Maybe let me think about it a little bit more, and maybe it'll come to me.
Yeah,
as
we
go
can come
on.
back to you, yeah. Mo, what about you?
Well, for me, I think this year has been really excellent so far.
For sure.
Like, there's some stumbles, there will always be those, but especially compared to last year when so much of the blockbuster scene was just a slog to go through. Like, this year we've got...
I don't know, personally, I thought Jason Bourne was the movie of the year, but, changed my life. No.
But this year, this year we got stuff like Colossal, like the Lego Batman movie, like Wonder Woman, like movies that have exceeded expectations in such a big bad way that they've really made this year something special for movies. But for me, my favorite movie of the year thus far is still Get Out.
Nice.
Written the directorial debut of Jordan Peele, horror thriller film about racism and about like a certain brand of racism that doesn't get presented in media often, but is definitely there. It's just so good. It's smart and it's really well shot and it's got great music and it's really well acted and it's the more you think about it, it's like the more you can pull from it, from different ideas you can get out of it, and all the scenes in it, there's a purpose to them. Like, I know that's a weird kind of compliment to give.
No, but that's we take that for granted, but honestly, most American mainstream movies lack that. I mean, it's not something to be taken lightly. He
trimmed a lot of the fat. Like the editor and Jordan Peele, they trimmed a lot of the fat. They made it a really lean, tight story. There's momentum to it. Like, everything serves a purpose. Like, it's at the theater that I work at. We do theater checks every so often. And every time I was looking, it's like, so if this is one of the good scenes, I might stick around a little bit longer and keep watching it. They're all good scenes.
Nice.
They all serve a purpose and move the story forward. They build atmosphere and mood. It's so well done. Get Out, my favorite movie of 2016 so far. All props to Jordan Peele, to Daniel Kaluuya, to all the cast, all the crew, everyone. It's so good.
We should mention too that Rotten Tomatoes scores obviously aren't the be all and end all, but it is a pretty big deal when a movie gets a score as high as Get Out, which is in the same league as Toy Story 3 or Boyhood. I mean, I
It
think
had 100 on Rotten Tomatoes for a while there.
yeah, I think we're gonna be hearing about it right up until the end of the year. And
I really hope
obviously
so.
beyond. Yeah. Well, my favorite film of the year, I've got a lot. I've had a really fun year this year. I've seen a lot of junk. I saw Smurfs: The Lost Village, for Christ's sake.
Why?
Because I got paid to.
Okay,
That's a good reason.
I would say you couldn't pay me to see it, but I did get paid to see it. So, I mean, I have a lot I could get into. I actually really loved the new Beauty and the Beast. I loved a lot of smaller films like The Wedding Plan, the Son of Joseph, which I think only played through PIF here, but that's a wonderful French film. And I love a movie that starts with a W that we're going to talk more about on Sunday, but you can't guess what it is. But my favorite film of the year, bar none, is James Gray's The Lost City of Zed, which for me, it's of the films I saw this year, it's the one that comes closest to perfection. And if you're not familiar with the story, it's based on a true story. It's about Percy Fawcett, who was a British explorer in the early 20th century. He went to the Amazon kind of on a routine mapping expedition, but he came to believe there was a lost city hidden in the jungle, and the movie is about how his life is consumed with his obsession and how he returns to the Amazon multiple times, giving up essentially his family and his normal life to pursue this fixation he has with the unknown. And it's a visually wondrous film. It really immerses you in the textures of the jungle, in the green of the trees and the water and the steaminess. The sound design of this movie is incredible. The hum of birds and bugs. It's a total complete world. And even though it's really about a guy who's kind of a horrible human being, he's a bad father. He's arguably a misogynist. Even though he's seems progressive on the surface, you could argue that he's kind of a colonialist guy. The movie has no illusions about him, and yet it makes you understand his obsession. And for those of you who want to see it and don't know anything about the real true story, don't learn anything about it, because the ending is beautiful and open-ended and fascinating in the most wonderful and seductive way. It's an incredible movie. It's quite a journey. But getting into more cynical territory.
Well, did you figure out a Best Picture?
Oh yeah.
No, I just realized that a lot of the movies that I was kind of interested in seeing, I just haven't had the time to make the time to see them yet. So, if anything, I'm more of a late summer fall guy anyways. I'll have more to say later in the year.
I'm a fall guy too.
I wanted to watch the new Guardians. I wanted to watch the new Aliens. I wanted to watch Get Out. I just haven't made time for them. And Lost City of Zed, I want to see that.
So good.
But what's funny is that you mentioned how Lost City of Zed had a really good ending, and that's in terms of the state of the movie union thing. I think a lot of movies just don't end very well now.
No, you're absolutely right.
They tend to drop the ball towards the end. I don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, well,
anyways.
let me take a detour for a second that I think plays into what you're saying. I saw Alien Covenant, and like the sci-fi fanboy that I am, I saw the Thursday night before it opened and was really excited to see a big Ridley Scott sci-fi movie, because I think even at his worst, Ridley Scott always has something to offer. But I don't want to spoil anything, but once you get to the ending, it's an ending that exists solely to set up the next Alien movie, and when you really think about it, it has no meaning. And so the ending is, for me, like what breaks the dream of that movie and makes it into a piece of assembly line product. Yeah. And instead of a real complete self-contained cinematic experience. And that's just one of many ways in which movie endings go wrong. I absolutely agree with you.
Uh-huh. And I think that has to do with the franchise building business.
And speaking of things we don't like in movies, because it's not film criticism if you don't get at least a little pessimistic, I would love to hear from both you guys what your least favorite film you've seen so far this year is. So what about you, Mo?
So I don't see a lot of movies that I don't think will be good. Because my time is not necessarily precious, but at the very least better spent than watching whatever crap is out there.
You're saying there's crap out there? What? What? No!
So when we got the questions for this in advance, and when I looked over it, I kind of racked my brain, and I realized that I hadn't seen a lot of movies that I would classify as bad. Mm-hmm. Like the worst movie I saw this year was likely Free Fire, and I don't want to talk smack about Free Fire because I liked it. I had fun with it.
Yeah, no, I liked it too. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So last night, using my connections, as in being an employee of Regal Cinemas, I got passed in to see Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales, which is the 5th entry in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Hey, I had to suffer through it in IMAX 3D.
Oh,
so.
Good heavens! It's disappointing in that it's not even a fun kind of bad. Like it's
terrible.
It's a mediocre script that was really poorly executed. That's it. There's nothing there to dissect. It's not good. You know, we're 5 movies in. The marriage between Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow has clearly deteriorated. They're just putting on a show for the neighbors, but the spark is gone. The story is just so cookie cutter and boilerplate and just like rehashed from everything else. They make a big deal about the old stars, Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley coming back. Keira Knightley has 0 dialogue in the whole movie. She says nothing.
Do we even know if that was her? I'm convinced it was just like, a CGI Leia.
Oh, yeah.
Like in Rogue One.
I wouldn't be shocked, you know? It's just... Who asked for this?
No one. Not me. I mean, and it's like...
I get that there's money to be made, but like... This is the story you chose to tell?
Yeah, no.
Haven't we had enough of Jack Sparrow by now?
I have, yeah. I mean, it's a sad, pathetic little movie, and it was made for $230 million, and it's like,
More than anything else, I just want this movie franchise to lie down, take a nap, take a load off.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, like, it's it got me thinking about the first film and how great Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley were at playing the straight man and straight woman respectively to Johnny Depp, and this new one, they tried to do it with Brenton Thwaites and Kyla Scolodario, who were both just amazingly unmemorable. Like they really could not carry their weight.
All right. Like
I think she was really wooden.
She was mostly just a vocal affectation of just like talking really fast, but she was all right. Brenton Thwaites is a block of wood.
Oh yeah.
He is Pinocchio pre-transformation.
I'm not sure why he's a thing, or why they're trying to make him a thing.
He's very pretty. He's pretty, and no one knows who he is, so it's cheap. But
that's a good point. Point well taken.
Looks good on marketing ads.
But this whole story, like, what? Oh my God! Barbossa is more perfunctory than ever.
And he's the best performance in the movie, arguably.
I had fun with God, why can't I remember his name? The bad guy here.
Bardem?
Yeah, Javier Bardem as the bad guy.
Although why they insist on burying like these bad guys under all this weird makeup is beyond me. It's
because they want another Davy Jones.
And Davy Jones was not even a good villain.
I like Davy Jones. I think he was really well done.
Oh, he was
Javier Bardem
smothered under an octopus beard. He wasn't even a thing. Ugh.
Javier Bardem going like super crazy. That's fun.
Yeah.
But it's
Jack Sparrow. It's like that was his thing for the movie. Like, Jack Sparrow.
It's just being as Spanish as humanly possible. So yeah, that's the worst movie I saw this year.
All right.
It's not good.
No argument there.
But I will probably see The Mummy out of morbid fascination, even though I'm hearing that it's a spectacular disaster.
You should. It's the fun kind of spectacular disaster.
All right, I'm down for it, man.
Patrick, what about you? Worst film you've seen this year so far?
Well, I guess it's because maybe it's related to the fact that I don't have a best film of the year just yet. I don't really have a worst film, but I have a most disappointing film, and that for me is just Song to Song, and I think we've gone over.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
A whole lot of time already explaining why it's a disappointment. So yeah, that's about it for me. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's and we as we talked about, I definitely liked Song to Song a lot, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, it is nowhere near where it could have been. There's so many nicks in the plot. So many things that don't make sense. Like, I mean, whether it's starting with the fact that Ryan Gosling is not at all convincing as a pop star, and they say he's on the radio. It's like, when is he on the radio? Who would put him on the radio? When is your singer like this? But I mean, so I mean, I don't know. I the more I think about it, the more I think like, it came out so fast after Night of Cups, and I almost wonder if like even like more time in the editing room could have made it a lot better. I don't know.
For sure, or it could have been something shorter, like a short film, as opposed to a full-length movie.
Yeah.
Or it was like some leftover material from from his previous works, but who knows?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Who knows?
What about you?
Well, my worst film of the year. Worst film of the year, like I made it. Thank goodness I didn't make this film. When I talk about worst films, like for me, I now see more bad movies a month than I've ever seen in my life, because writing for Willamette Week, I mean I see all kinds of stuff. As I mentioned, I saw Smurfs: The Lost Village, for goodness sake, but so for me, like all the bad ones kind of blend together. When I'm thinking about bad, it's not. I think like, well, what really stands out? And for me, it's not enough to just be incompetent, because incompetent movies are a dime a dozen. I have to think about what's a movie that was not only incompetent, but what it stands for morally offends me. And there are a couple this year, but one is the film Before I Fall, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's based on a young adult novel by Lauren Oliver.
Great start.
And it's basically Groundhog Day, starring a high school girl, Zoe Deutsch. She plays this girl.
Yeah, I think I saw maybe like one trailer for it.
Yeah, she dies. She dies in a car accident. She relives the day every day. She becomes more and more virtuous, blah, blah, blah. And, this is all totally unconvincing. Nothing in the movie rings true. It's a totally false, formulaic, wooden, mechanical, TV-ready Hallmark movie. You can practically feel the commercial breaks slotted in there. But the worst part is that the film insists on turning Zoe Deutsch's character into this almost... she's a really... First, I should say, she's a really bad character. She's reprehensible. She's a bully. But the film insists on turning her into a Christ-like savior, who's using the time she has left to help people. And she helps a suicidal girl, and she helps a gay girl. And so it's like, okay, we've got this insufferable, rich, white character, and they're using these marginalized characters basically to show how virtuous she is. And I find that disgusting, and I can't believe... I mean, I shouldn't say that. I can believe that no one thought about that, because, people can be pretty stupid and oblivious, but that doesn't stop me from being depressed that something that reprehensible exists. I mean, it's just...
So it's reductive. It's taking these, like, legitimate struggles and turning them into just... planets in her orbit.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And it's kind of like it's almost like the kind of like Avatar or Dances with Wolves syndrome, except imported into high school, which who asked for that? I mean, not me.
See, this is why I keep going back to Freaks and Geeks is my favorite high school show, because it acknowledges that these problems aren't real problems. Like, and on some level, there's the emotional stakes to it.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's like, this isn't a big deal, and you're kind of laughing at the characters for thinking it's a big deal.
Sure,
like the first episode, like, the geeks, they get, like, the bully challenges them to a fight, and they have to show up, and they're freaking out. And it's like, this is a dumb shit white boy from Nowheresville, Michigan. You should not be scared of him. But they are, and that's the joke.
No, that's so true, and I think like you can't really tell a good high school story about those types of characters without that level of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it just looks foolish. Really.
That's why I stopped watching Glee. It just takes itself way too seriously.
Well, moving on, we're going to get into a subject that I find kind of fascinating.
Before that,
yes.
Didn't you say you had a second worst movie?
Oh, I mean, I had
Some other
I had
contenders.
a lot. I mean, Smurfs is horrible. Pirates is horrible. Oh gosh, I saw that movie Megan Levy based on a true story about a Marine and her dog. That's a bad movie that really doesn't do justice to its
Source material?
Its source material, yeah, and it's getting really good reviews, which puzzles me. Like that's another movie it's ready made for TV, and I don't know. There were others, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm having a hard time thinking of them because I had so many movies I hated from last year. Like I had for the first time last year, I had a full top 10 bad movies list. Like it was,
wow.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, 2016 was the year of Suicide Squad, so what you gonna do?
Academy Award winning feature of
The
Suicide
Academy Award,
Squad.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm not a religious man, but it might be another time for another one of those biblical floods. Just wipe the slate clean, start over from scratch. I think we've done all we can.
It does get you thinking along those lines when you realize that an Oscar for Suicide Squad puts it in the same conversation as say The Hurt Locker. I mean it's a sad state of affairs. But moving on to our next topic, this is something that I think is pretty interesting, and it's been building for a while, but it's just now kind of turning into a geyser of craziness. As you guys probably saw, the big brouhaha at Cannes this year was Netflix, and Cannes being very resistant to Netflix bringing movies there, kind of considering them not to be real movies, to the point where when Bong Joon-ho's new film Okja was shown and the Netflix logo came up, the audience actually booed, and then something went wrong with the projection, which it's like oh yeah, that just accidentally happened, But I mean, this speaks.
Con was an inside job.
Yes, but this speaks to a larger question of the game is changing with Netflix and Amazon coming into the film industry, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of that. Do you guys think this is good for cinema? Is it bad for cinema? Somewhere in between. Let's start with you, Patrick. What do you think?
Well, generally speaking, I think it's a great thing when there's dynamism in any industry, in any economy, where you have new players coming in and challenging the old guard. I think that's always a good thing. But if we're talking about this in terms of how the streaming services, are competing with cinemas and going to the movies and that experience, I think this is a little bit of apples to oranges, and it's not super fair to criticize Amazon and Netflix on those grounds. But if they're producing quality material that are cinematic quality that are worth putting out in the theaters, then I'm all for it. I'm not necessarily on the side of the big established studios. I think a lot of them are full of crap with some of their franchise building that they like to do, and so.
When you say apples and oranges, are you thinking in terms of the fact that even though Netflix and Amazon can put a film in theaters, because a streaming service is such a different model from the traditional kind of movie studio model, do you think that automatically makes it a different kind of thing, or not so much?
I don't know. Maybe it's because they're using the same logo that it's confusing people.
Sure.
Perhaps Netflix and Amazon should think about putting out a different brand to distinguish itself to distinguish those movies from from their home releases, because I think it's a completely different experience watching movies on small screen versus watching movies on the big screen, and that's what I meant by apples to oranges.
I see. Yeah.
And
yeah.
by
no,
using
I totally
by
agree.
using the same properties and logos, maybe that kind of confuses things a little bit
Yeah.
for some people.
There is a sense that it's muddied the waters, but to speak to what you said about being a good thing, I mean, like I can be kind of obsessive about in the film industry, kind of the way things used to be. I'm a big film over digital guy, but that kind of then thinking does get challenged, even though I think it has its merits. And one thing that challenged me was The Lost City of Zed, which is, as I just mentioned, my favorite film of the year so far. That's an Amazon movie, and we wouldn't have that movie.
Oh wow, I didn't know that was an Amazon
I know,
movie.
yeah, and
Wasn't Manchester by the Sea also?
Manchester by
Amazon?
the Sea, and that won 2 Oscars. So I mean that it makes you think. But what about you, Mo?
I haven't been keeping up with this really a lot. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I'm definitely interested in more avenues for releasing features, more voices getting a chance to say their piece. Especially if it's outside the studio system, where it's there's more creative control from the artists, where it's you can get different kind of stuff. I'm trying to think, and I'm likening it to like the video game industry did a very similar thing. They've got Steam as a platform where people can download computer games from offline, and it's become a distribution network for a lot of indie creators, for them to put together stuff. And I think Netflix is doing something similar. I love the movie. A lot of the movies that Netflix put out. My favorite film last year is 13th, which is a Netflix movie.
That's right.
Before,
I forgot, yeah.
Before that, one of my favorite films of 2015 was Beasts of No Nation, which was Netflix. I haven't been keeping up a lot with what Amazon was doing. I saw Manchester, but that's about it. But yeah, I'm interested in more, not only in more indie filmmakers being able to put out their work, but having a platform that's really accessible. Like they don't need to do a marketing blitz. They don't need to rent out a theater if they haven't done a marketing blitz and no one's heard of the movie. I work at a theater where we get independent features and foreign features and art house stuff, and they are a lot of the times dead on arrival. But so many people have Netflix accounts. If you just put this thing up there and say, hey, we got this movie, this is what it's about, are you interested in it? And people can click yes or no. So that's not a lot of substance there, but that's my thoughts on it.
No, but you raise a great point about it. Let's wait just a second.
Yeah. These are the perils of recording out here. Okay.
But yeah, you make a great point about it allowing more voices, and I think there's that new film out, War Machine, which I haven't seen it, but it looks like a weird subversive look at the war in Afghanistan, and the director who also made Animal Kingdom and The Rover, who didn't think he would have possibly been able to make it without Netflix, and then of course we see this all the time, like isn't like with like there was that movie Dear White People, which I don't think a lot of people saw it when it was in theaters, but didn't one of the but it's a show on one of the streaming services.
It is. It's a show on Netflix. It is my favorite show of the year.
But this speaks to the idea that maybe streaming services are willing to take chances that the studios aren't, and who can argue with that?
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Well, one thing I want to speak to about this is Netflix and Amazon are doing this very, very differently. Like Amazon is Amazon's a traditionalist. Amazon, they release things in theaters first, or Bleecker Street or whoever they work with, I guess, does it. I don't quite know the specifics, but then they wait a bit to put it online. Netflix despite a lot of pushback from the theaters, insists on these day and date releases where stuff is simultaneously in theaters and online. And that's one thing that, like, I like, I would never blame any filmmaker for, going to Netflix or Amazon, when, no one else will take their idea. Like, J.C. Chandor, the director of All Is Lost, he wanted to make a movie called Triple Frontier with Paramount. Paramount backed out, now he's going to Netflix, as well he should, but I wish that Netflix was doing things more like Amazon, because the day and date thing worries me, because I kind of like the magic of, for a little bit something's only in theaters.
Sure.
And the theatrical window is closing. Things come out on DVD faster and faster. If anybody besides me buys DVDs anymore. But this is different, and that's the one part of this that concerns me. More great content can never be a bad thing. It's just the day and date thing. I continue to feel resistant towards.
No, that's a very interesting thing that's going on right now, an interesting debate, because that will basically change the culture if this becomes normalized, because we're so used to things being released on a big screen first, where you have to go out in public with other people to see these movies. And if you want to see it in the comfort in your own home in a smaller screen, you have to wait. And now they're trying to blur that. They're trying to make it so that you have a choice of either or. And that, I think that's a very big game changer going forward.
It is, yeah. And I mean, if you want to know how big a game changer it is, look no further than Scorsese, who has brought his next movie to Netflix. That is going to be a day and date movie. This is a big movie with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, maybe even Joe Pesci in there. And the fact that people will be able to pop that up on their computer or on their phone the day it's released in theaters. That's huge. And it's too early to call. Is this simply going to add to the industry, or will this change the culture of the industry overall? I hope not, but it certainly could. It's not out of the question.
Well, it's definitely going to change the cinema-going experience. If this becomes more of a normal thing, 10 to 15 years from now, I could imagine a lot of smaller theater chains just going under.
Yeah,
and the whole cinema market will just be Regal, Cinemark, AMC, and the bigger boys.
I hope that's not the case, because I like the choices. I like that there are the Hollywood theaters and whatnot.
Yeah, and going to a point that I was going to bring up later, but how this will change how content is made, I think, where we'll start to see these day and date releases. A variety of movies, but movies that are only going to be shown in theaters are going to be almost specifically designed for bigger screens and bigger explosions and things like that. I think.
Sure.
We won't see a lot of smaller films in cinemas anymore. They'll go straight to day and date release.
And I worry about that, because a film to me, I don't know. I mean, some of the smaller films of last year, whether it's a Moonlight or a Hell or High Water, or anything of that scale, I really think those are as worthy of being seen on the big screen as
absolutely.
Avatar 500.
Because it's just a different experience.
It is, yes.
Being in that big dark room with a giant screen in your face.
Yeah. And it's a communal experience too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mo, were you going to say something?
I think we've had this conversation before, but I know that this is the same thing people went through in the 50s when television was a thing, when suddenly, the go-to thing to do on a Friday night wasn't go out and see the latest Liz Taylor feature. It was to stay in and watch I Love Lucy,
Right.
It's the change, and movies survived that, and and there were some flailing attempts. They were trying to they got bigger. They created CinemaScope and 3D movies and all this stuff, and
they ended up with Cleopatra.
But they also managed to survive. They figured out the new way to work. They started appealing to a different market. They took risks on different features, and that's why the 70s is still considered one of the best decades for movies, because the studio system kind of imploded on itself. They couldn't save themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And so they were willing to risk everything on the film brats, on the first generation of filmmakers who grew up with film as a constant in their lives. So it was people like Francis Ford Coppola, like George Lucas, like Steven Spielberg, like people who they learned from the masters, from Eisenstein and Hitchcock, all the people who built the language of cinema, but they also learned from kind of the cheap, trashy stuff, from the cheesy monster movies or sci-fi serials or whatever. And that's how you get Star Wars and Jaws and The Godfather and all this stuff. So I don't know what the future holds. This is not my area of expertise by any means. But I think cinema will survive. It's been a part of it's been instrumental in the 20th century, and I think it'll continue to be so for the 21st century.
Yeah, you raised some great points, and it takes me back to someone in the New York Times. It was either A.O. Scott or Manuel Dargis. I think it was Scott. He said like people say cinema is dead every year. They're always like ringing the death knell for cinema, and you're right. It's an art form that's survived a lot of upheaval. So maybe streaming services, maybe it's not so much a game changer as much an addition to what's already there.
There may be some casualties, but I think cinema will survive.
Sure.
Oh, that's a good way of looking at it. And to put a further positive spin on it, I think being that if there's upheaval in the industry where you have disruptors like Amazon and Netflix, perhaps this will change the way movies are made to the point where we'll start to see more innovative things coming out.
I hope so. Yeah.
I mean, like what you were saying about the 70s. I mean, if Hollywood wasn't in such disarray, would we have Star Wars?
Yeah, maybe not.
Star Wars would probably never have gotten greenlit in the first place.
Well, in the implosion or explosion or disintegration, whatever you want to call it, of the studio system, that's arguably what also led to stuff like The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde, and maybe we'll have our own version of that in this day and age. But moving on to a subject that's different, but definitely related. One thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is we're in the summer movie season. Mm-hmm. Like all summer movie seasons, this one is seeing a lot of really, really big flops. Like King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. I can't believe they're making me say that whole title because it's so stupid. But it cost, on boxofficemojo.com, it says the production budget was $175 million. That's actually not quite true. Combined with marketing, it cost $300 million to make. It is nowhere close to breaking even. Mm-hmm. And we've got The Mummy coming out this weekend. That's probably also going to be a huge flop. And it reminds me of a problem that was going on back in 2015 where the box office was dominated by a couple films that were successful. Star Wars: The Force Awakens and Jurassic World made things look like they were healthy, but there was a lot of, monetarily, a lot of bleeding underneath. For every The Force Awakens, there's a, Huntsman Winter's War, or some nonsense like that really, hurts the bottom line, hurts the industry. And I was wondering, what you guys think, can be done to stop the bleeding. And I'm not just talking about in terms of making better movies, although a lot of studios need to start doing that. But yes, yeah. But in terms of specific steps they can take. Getting whether it means getting certain directors more involved, certain actors, giving certain genres more play. What do you think? What do you think about?
I think it leads back to this is a few years ago when The Lone Ranger came out, and it's kind
good
of
times.
good times, and it's that didn't. I don't know if it bombs, but it's not memorable.
Yeah,
I can say that much.
It lost Disney a fair bit of money.
It hasn't had a lot of influence.
Although it has a really, really awesome train fight scene. I'll say that for it. It was kick-ass.
Bob Chipman, who's a critic I've been a fan of for years, he basically just summed it up in one question. Who is this movie for? Who is the target demographic of The Lone Ranger? Because the movie wasn't aimed at the older generation who would recognize and have nostalgia for the Lone Ranger because it kind of craps on him, kind of tries to rejigger his mythology. And the younger generation doesn't know who the Lone Ranger is, and everything about him is geared towards an older generation with just being a Western in general. So who is this movie for? And I think that question pops up a lot in the modern blockbuster scene. When you emailed the questions, you mentioned Power Rangers.
Yes,
and the recent remake of that.
I actually saw that.
Who is this movie for? Because the show is still going. Like, it's unbelievable, but it's 23 years on.
I didn't even know that. That's kind of shocking.
But the way the show is set up is that they take footage from these Japanese Super Sentai series,
right,
and they'll rejigger them and then add a plot from an American perspective or a New Zealand perspective because that's where they shoot it.
That's funny in and of itself.
But as long as Japan keeps making Super Sentai series, then yeah, they got material to work with. So the show's still going on. Why do you need the movie?
Yeah.
Like, I guess just a big budget version of that, but is that really enough? Is there really enough there to warrant the however many millions of dollars you spent on the movie? So stuff like that, I guess, is just figure out the audience and figure out what you're going to do. I mean, that's too broad. I'm gonna try and figure out a better way to say that. It's have a goal, like have a clear goal beyond just we reach the biggest market possible. I saw Captain Underpants recently, which is an adaptation of the kids' books by Dave Pickley, and it was a good movie. It was funny. I had fun with it, and this is something I read about it. I read when they were making it, they said the controversy surrounding the books helped because the books, people don't like them because it's like it promotes rebelliousness and anti-authoritarian behavior, which is kind of true, but also an exaggeration. But basically, the controversy helps because they could say, we're not going to reach these people. We're not going to reach the ones who have already decided that we're the problem. So we can focus on making the movie just a pure adaptation of the books. Kind of rejigger some things about it, but keep close to the spirit. We're not trying to reach everyone. We're just trying to reach the people who would like the books. And you get a stronger product out of that. So I would say that's the main goal. Figure out who your movie is for and lean into that. Work with that.
That's such a great point. And it takes me back to an article I read talking about the idea of the 4-quadrant movie. And that's what every studio wants to hit, the movie that appeals to every demographic. But then Disney that year had really amazing success with Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella. And that was not a 4-quadrant movie. It appealed, it was mostly women who saw it. And
for a while, the highest grossing movie of the year was a girl movie, which was Titanic.
Right. And it's like kind of.
I put "girl" in air quotes.
Right.
You can't see it because of the podcast, but I did. And I love Titanic, but if I start talking about Titanic, that'll take up the whole podcast because I think it's one of the greatest films ever made. But it's this idea of like a narrow and deep movie. You don't appeal to everyone, but the people you do appeal to, you reach pretty much all of them. You really get in there. You bring everybody out, and I think that's really important. Look at the success of Sex and the City. That was one of the biggest hits of 2008. One of the reasons why Buffy the Vampire Slayer was so successful on television was the executives basically went to UPN back in the it was on the WB.
It was WB and then UPN.
Yeah,
right?
and now they've merged into CW, so it's all a big cluster
big
cuss.
Happy corporate family.
But on the WB, they basically said, you want to advertise to teenage girls, we have a show that will do that. And suddenly, it's a hit, because you focus on this demographic, and you can make so much money off of that, just from marketing directly to this one demographic.
Sure.
So yeah, that would be my guess, is just to figure out who your movie's for, and then lean into it.
Patrick, what do you think?
Well, I think the content angle is really important. I think it's, of course, obviously important to make really good movies and make sure you're selling it to the right people. But I'm thinking of this issue in economic terms, where I just think that the business model of the traditional studios is just not sustainable, where they're releasing movies that are just increasingly more expensive, and they're not making money. They're not making their money back because, well, people are just not going to the movies as much, so it seems, and they can't really compete with the newcomers into the game, like Amazon and Netflix, because they have an advantage here, which is that they can kind of control their distribution, where they can produce the movies and they can release it on their platforms, and people are paying monthly fees for this, whereas the studios don't have this benefit at all. They have to do their profit sharing with the movie the theater houses, right, like AMC and Regal, etc. So that's just a losing business model in the first place. And then on top of that, you have the content issues like Mo was just talking about. What is the solution? I don't know. I think it would be great if you can kind of get that sweet spot where your movie costs just as much as you, and it just makes back the money. But I don't think there's a silver bullet. I think it remains to be seen how consumer taste goes and how people are spending their money at the movies. And I think this is why, like, Netflix is experimenting with this day and date release thing to see if that's a better business model.
Sure,
and
given that there's a flawed model in place, like you alluded to.
Right, and everybody's watching this because if the studios keep releasing films and making huge losses on them, this is not good, because as much as I like to criticize these studios, I don't really want to see them go away.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, they're fun to talk about. They're fun. Occasionally they release good stuff, and they've been a part of our culture for so long. It'll be sad to see them go away.
Yeah, no, it would be heartbreaking.
So I don't know. I think we're in a little bit of a free fall in terms of how the movie business is being run.
Yeah.
But I think it would be great which is why what I said earlier. I think it's great to have newcomers into the business to kind of disrupt things and be willing to take chances. And I guess it remains to be seen how this will play out. But I hope that the studios will start to realize that their business model is just not working. There's only so many Michael Bay Transformers movies they can release before.
Try telling him that.
How many times do they have to do this before they learn the damn lesson that it's just not going to work?
Until they lose money, I guess.
Yeah, those are being successful, so there's still money to be made.
Which is still sad when you think about it.
But we are looking at things in a broader way. I think we should narrow this down a little further in different directions. Like Mo was talking about the content. I'm a little we haven't talked about this yet, but I'm a little interested in things like why aren't people watching movies as much as they used to? Things like that.
That's a really good question, and I think part of it is you look at a lot of what comes out, and where a lot of it there's no reason to care about it. Like I'll compare two Ridley Scott movies, Alien Covenant and The Martian, and I personally, unlike most people, I didn't like The Martian, but I will say this: it was an entertaining movie, and it was a fully formed movie that really resonated with people. It made an impact, and you think about that. It's a big, character-driven, exciting movie. A lot of thought was put into it, and you look at a movie like that, you can see why people would go see it. Even though I didn't care for it myself, I certainly went to go see it, and then I saw part of it for free again because they were showing it at school. But then you look at Alien Covenant. I don't think anyone was begging for another Alien movie after the garbage dump of a film that was Prometheus. And it's like, and I think it goes back to the question. that you asked, Mo, like, who is this movie for? I mean, there are a lot of movies that are, I think, for not a lot of people.
I get that a fair amount is like, it's for the filmmaker. It's the story they want to tell. But it seems like there's a way to tell these stories without spending $300 million on them.
Yeah, well, just look at David O. Russell. Like all David O. Russell's movies are arguably mid-range. We hear a lot that the mid-range movie is dead. Yes, sort of, but American Hustle was a mid-range movie and it made over $100 million in the United States alone. Silver Linings Playbook was a mid-range movie. It made over $100 million in the United States alone. Those were movies with good performances. They told fresh stories. They told, complex stories that I think made people sit up and look and go, I've never seen anything quite like that before. And I think, you spread that spirit around, you start to, I think that's the moment when you start to see a little bit of change and a little bit of less of this, like, oh, movies, they don't make them like they used to, like.
I do have kind of a silver bullet for this problem. I don't think you can beat just good old-fashioned, really good storytelling. I mean, you look at films like Get Out. I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's getting this buzz that it's a really good film. And the more this kind of word of mouth goes around, people will want to see it. I mean, it's playing in theaters after all this time.
We still got it.
That's awesome.
So
that's really cool.
So if the studios want to go somewhere where it's kind of a safe bet, it's to focus on just really good storytelling. And don't worry about this marketing mumbo jumbo so much that they used to do, or that they like to do.
The other thing I'm thinking about, going back to what I said, it's like you look at King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. You get the sense that movie production has become so bloated at this point that blockbusters are costing so much that they have to take as little risk as possible with telling a story. And that means that they kind of they'll go back and they'll do stuff that's worked before. So, King Arthur movies worked before, let's do another one of those. Did anyone ask for a new King Arthur movie? Did anyone ask for Sons of Anarchy over here to play King Arthur? I maybe somewhere, but is there enough there to warrant spending this much money? We got a new Robin Hood movie coming down the pipeline. Did anyone ask for a new Robin Hood movie?
No.
I'll give them credit. They're casting. I'll give them credit. They're casting Taron Egerton. I like him, but is there enough there? Is there enough new that you're going to add to this that it's going to justify his existence and the money you're spending on it?
See, that's like pulling the cart before the horse. They're focusing on marketable things, like Robin Hood. That's a very marketable thing.
Sure.
And you can't have the marketing department producing and directing films. That just doesn't work.
No.
Because then you'll have flops like King Arthur.
Right. Well, I mean, and then you just mentioned, Mo, the idea of risk. That's the one thing that all great films have in common. Risk. I mean, Star Wars is now kind of enshrined in popular culture. Star Wars was the first one was one of the biggest risks ever. Even The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi were risks, and I think
Titanic was a massive
Titanic
risk.
was a huge risk. Yeah. Oh my God, and that went so over budget. I mean, that was just. I mean that was such a risk that James Cameron even directed it for free. I mean he got his money after it did as well as it did.
But if it wasn't James Cameron, it wouldn't have gotten greenlit in the first place.
Just that right out there.
Yeah.
But then you got something like Get Out, which it's very low risk. It's like a $6 million movie, but it's speaking to a very specific group. It's not just, or at least a few specific groups. It's not just horror fans, but it is people of color. I am not big into horror movies, but when I heard that this movie was as good as it was, and it's all coming from a black person's voice, starring a black person, about the experience of being a black person in America, I kind of felt like I had to see it.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because it was great. But it's that same kind of idea. It's knowing who your movie's for. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. And it's like, if you're speaking, if you're speaking to someone, then I feel like that's half the battle right there. That's really the core thing, and it explains anything like why is this movie being made.
And then there's like the other thing that I don't think people would like to admit this, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a risk. We're setting it up using comic book style continuity in the movies. We're going to embrace the weirdness of stuff like the Avengers, of stuff like a Norse god and a World War II soldier and a scientist and a monster all working together, even though they conceivably shouldn't in any way be in the same room, much less the same story.
No, that's true. If you were to go back in time, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago and think about the type of movies Marvel's releasing these days, it'd be like...
It's not just that. It's setting up big blockbuster movies and saying it's not enough to see this one movie. You got to see the rest of them, so this one has more impact. So this one makes more sense. And it's kind of cynical, but it works. And now everyone's trying to do it, and they don't have the same formula. DC's trying to do it. Universal's trying to do it with their dark universe, which it's. I can't comment on The Mummy because I haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to talk about DC some more. It's Batman v Superman. Movie Bob described it as a Batman no one had met fighting a Superman nobody liked for the fate of a DC universe no one had bothered to think up. And it's just, they wanted an Avengers movie without first doing the legwork. And it didn't work. And a lot of audiences and critics did not respond to that.
Right.
So, that's another thing. It's not enough to just kind of try to play copycat with Marvel. It's like, to its credit, Fast and Furious is a cinematic universe that seems to be working, and
they're trying to do spin-offs of that now.
And part of that is because they didn't intend for it to be a Fast and Furious movie. It's like, we're gonna do a Vin Diesel car movie, and then we're gonna do some more movies, and then we're gonna bring back Vin Diesel and all the other stuff from the other movies that we liked, and make that one movie, and then do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it worked. By all accounts, they're still making money, and I would not be surprised if a 9th one is in the works.
Oh yeah, they're going to do 10 total.
Good God!
Yeah, because they want to do because 8, 9, 10 is supposed to be a new Fast and Furious trilogy.
To this day, I still have not seen any of them.
I haven't either. I started watching Tokyo Drift, but I didn't.
I saw like half of the first one. That's about it. And I was like 10 when that happened, so I don't remember anything.
Yeah, and it was crazy how long ago that was.
Yeah.
No, and I think this is interesting. Like, I'm personally not a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but at the same time, there's a freshness to it, and I think that's why it's popular. And it's like you can tell the difference between the real deal, which is Marvel, being really the first studio to do that, the interlocking properties thing. And you can, when you see like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Batman vs. Superman, and they're trying to imitate it, you can tell it's an imitation. You can tell it's not organic and it's being forced. And
oh God, the worst part of Batman v Superman was when they did the whole intermission of like showing who.
The
different characters. Yeah, the slideshow. That was so horrible. Oh my God.
The Honest Trailer guy, they did a really funny thing with that. They said, they promised you the dawn of the Justice League, and they delivered an email attachment. It's like, yep, case closed.
Sums it up.
Pretty much.
So how long did it take for us to start bagging on Batman v Superman? Like I feel like
we bagged on it earlier too.
Every time we have one of these conversations, that's going to come up.
Yeah. Because it's so fun. It's so fun to punch that movie in the face.
Easy and it's fun.
It is.
Well,
I had another question I wanted to get into, but I think I'll skip that one. But Patrick wants to. We can get into it. Did you want to talk about the Scorsese thing?
Just to back up a couple pegs here.
Yeah.
How we were earlier talking about our best movies of the year. I think, and this is not to say that it's a perfect movie, but the best movie I saw this year is probably Trainspotting 2.
Oh,
right on.
nice. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
So tell us more.
Well, there was one fatal flaw for me that didn't make me want to give it 4 stars, but otherwise it was an enjoyable film for the most part. This is the type of movie that I would have loved to actually read the screenplay, because I had a feeling that the screenplay would probably, or the script would probably address my problems with it. But I think it was very good in terms of being self-aware of its nostalgia factor, and it really got into this idea of nostalgia, and that was actually built into the script and was a major theme in the movie. And I thought that worked for the most part. It didn't go far enough, but it really worked. So I would have to say that that's my favorite movie of the year so far.
Right on.
Seems like when from what I've read about the movie, like it sounds like part of what makes it work is like acknowledging the passage of time and like really dealing with the reality of who these guys are now that they're it's like it's 20
40s,
years
yeah.
older, right? Like,
yeah.
Is
So
that true?
Approaching middle age already.
Wow.
Yeah, it addressed that head on, and I appreciated that. And it got in terms of nostalgia. It went to this idea that you can't really go back to the past.
Sure.
And I think it was in itself is almost a critique of these properties that are being revived, kind of like how they're bringing back like Arrested Development and things like that.
Oh, right, sure.
People keep rumoring about bringing Friends back and things like that. It critiques, it critiques that you can't go back to the past, and that was built into the plot of the film, and that's what I appreciated.
I like that.
And that's probably why they all were on board with it, and why the film was made in the first place, because it was pretty smart the way it was done.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a solid idea there, and not just like let's just tack another one on.
Yeah. If I recall, I gave it 3.5 stars.
Nice, cool. As I mentioned, I think we're gonna skip the other question I have planned, but I want to get into something that just dropped this morning. Actually, the New York Times put up their list of the 25, in their opinion, best films of the century so far, and they brought in a lot of other filmmakers, Antoine Fuqua, Sofia Coppola, Denis Villeneuve, to come in, share their thoughts, and they had some really interesting lists. And
I might have read a different list then.
Oh, no worries. But I don't know. I know you guys probably didn't have time to come up with like a complete 25, and I don't. We probably don't have time to get in depth about our favorite of the century. But do you guys have any movies you want to list off from 2000 to the present?
2000 to the present?
Yeah.
Well, I just got your email this morning, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it. That's a big amount of time to think about. So.
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah.
But reading the list on the New York Times, it just dawned on me that I haven't seen most of those movies.
I know there's a lot of them I have to admit I haven't seen. Yeah.
Fair enough.
What about you, Mo?
I'm trying to pull up the list to remind myself what's on it.
Cool.
Because we are super professional here.
Well, I'll give you a second. I actually made a list of 31 movies.
Oh,
so
Mr. Extra
yes,
Credit
we can
over
pause.
here.
Yeah.
From the New York Times.
Sophia Coppola's was the funniest because she put Daddy's Home on her list. Like that to me is like that's just. Wow, she's not,
Okay, so
sitting around watching really slow, artful films. Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I did skim it. Although the people who have been posting on, I recognize A.O. Scott. Oh, Del Toro. You had something to say.
Oh, he's on. I didn't see him. That's cool.
Yeah, he talked about Spirited Away.
Nice.
I was surprised to find the 4-year-old virgin on there.
Yeah. No, they love Judd Apatow. Like I think they said something like like future sociologists are gonna like look at his films to understand our world.
Are they?
I don't necessarily think so.
I like Judd Apatow. I think it's just a lot of his voice is very familiar.
Yeah.
Like it's just like frustrated white dad.
Sure. Yeah.
Which there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, and he makes funny movies, but it's.
But it's like, do we really need that?
Where's
like,
the edge? Where's the newness to it?
Yeah.
I mean, like I might put Get Out on there, but I think that might be a little premature or ambitious. Fury Road, definitely, I would agree with that.
Oh yeah, Fury Road, yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to come up with stuff that's just like influential, not just good. And honestly, the original Pirates comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because I think I might have an essay up in here about the degradation of Jack Sparrow, about how he went from everyone's favorite character to like, we're sick of this guy.
Yeah. I know, it's really kind of amazing. I mean, he was an Academy Award nominee for that performance to begin with.
But it's like the original just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like Disney has done live action features before, but they weren't big hits. Like Mary Poppins, but not really. Disney was known for animation, especially like coming off the Renaissance era, where like they owned the animated box office. That was their domain.
Well, I remember thinking like what, Disney can make live action? That's allowed? Like,
but not only that, it's based on a theme park ride.
Right? Yeah. It shouldn't have worked.
It should not have worked.
And yet it works so beautifully.
We have a clever screenplay, and we have a good director, and we have a cast that's game for it.
Yeah.
And we got this lead character who is played by an indie darling that no one's heard of.
Yeah.
Who's weird and kind of off-putting, but also charismatic and fun, and you don't know what to expect of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I might put the original The Curse of the Black Pearl on there. I don't know if there's enough to put the Avengers there, but it was influential.
No, it was hugely influential. I mean, I think that was
maybe not the best, but definitely influential. I mean, we wouldn't have The Mummy without it.
No, we wouldn't. I mean, that was what started the cinematic universe boom.
That's what proved that it could work.
Yeah,
I would say that. I don't know what else I would put on here of the 21st century movies. I'm glad they included Moonlight.
Oh yeah. Love Moonlight.
I'm trying to think of what are like the big Oscar movies that have.
Let's officially restart, and then I'll ask you again.
So
you ready?
Go for it.
All right. So Mo, do you wanna name some of your movies?
I have some ideas that I just spent like 5 minutes talking about.
We took a little break.
We did. But the one that kind of stuck with me, I know, like I'll bag on this series for years to come, but the original Pirates of the Caribbean, I would put on there just because it came out of nowhere, just because it was so fresh and so unexpected. Like, granted, the bar was set way low for this because Disney's not exactly known for having a lot of success in live action. Like, yeah, they had Mary Poppins in the 50s, but what else? I know there's Pete's Dragon and like Roger Rabbit and stuff, but those are live action.
Swiss Family Robinson. That was
a thing that existed, and I never saw it.
You didn't miss a whole lot. A little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, but then Disney not only announces they've got a new live action feature coming out, but one based on a theme park ride. Like, dubious source material, and then this comes out and it's fun, and it's energetic, and it's clever, and there's this lead performance from an indie darling that isn't overexposed at all, and who brings a lot of quirk and charm to this character, and it holds up. Like, even with all the baggage of the sequels, it still holds up as a fun movie.
Yeah, I watched it just a couple weeks ago and I loved it.
Yeah, so I might put Curse of Black Pearl up there. I'm trying to think in terms of like comedies that have aged well, but that's tough.
Scott Pilgrim?
Scott Pilgrim? I love that movie, but I don't think it's hugely influential.
But in terms of like if you're saying like your personal favorite.
Oh, so. My personal favorites, yeah, that's probably up there.
I'm surprised that didn't take off.
I know. It was the marketing campaign. It was
marketing, it was
fault.
bad timing, I think.
You choose a different day for that movie, you do a better marketing campaign. It could have made $100 million, I think. I really
it's reached its audience, and for that I'm happy.
Yeah.
And
no, people still like it.
Edgar Wright still is working.
Yeah.
So we got that.
It didn't hurt him. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like what was the biggest, freshest comedy of the past few years, and the one that's come to mind is The Hangover.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. You know, the thing about The Hangover is like, you look at that movie, it is ingeniously structured. That is some of the best storytelling.
Yeah.
The straight man is also the MacGuffin.
Yeah,
which is weird.
yeah.
And it's like, so all the comedy sidekicks have to take turns being the straight man.
Sure.
And it works.
It does.
What was surprising is that if you were to just judge the movie off of its trailer, you would not have expected it would be as good as it was.
No way.
You would think it would be just another like bro weekend movie, right?
Right.
But it was really good.
Yeah. I think the ingeniousness was in the, creating this this situation where like this question, what did they do, hangs over everything and motivates all the action, and so you're constantly like leaning in because it's like a scavenger hunt, and you want to know what crazy depraved thing it leads to. I mean, that's not great screenwriting, I don't know what is.
The good part about it is that they don't explicitly answer all your questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's
because
brilliant.
You can't like.
It's like a magician. You don't show how you do the trick.
It's the horror movie thing of whatever you're imagining, whatever they present isn't as good as what you're imagining.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the second movie was pretty crappy, and I didn't see the third one.
No, I didn't see either.
I wanna make a movie like The Hangover, but make it loosely based on Dante's Inferno.
When he wakes up in hell and he doesn't know why.
Would it be the same cast? That's what I want to know.
Comedic cast, and like that's everything. You gotta have good casting.
Oh yeah. I'm not picturing Ed Helms saying, "We're in hell." Hell.
Yeah, I don't know what else. Like, was The Matrix? No, Matrix was 99, wasn't it?
Yeah, right on the tail end of the
Yeah,
movies.
but
Wait,
that was
what year are we cutting off?
2000.
Yeah,
because it's the 21st
2000.
century.
Well, Lord of the Rings should be.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't think we mentioned that one.
Not necessarily the Harry Potter movies individually, but together, like just as a collective force in popular culture.
Avatar, maybe.
The Avatar is burnt out by now. Like, it was huge for about a year because everyone had to make a 3D movie then.
Right.
And now I think there's the backlash. People have lost their taste for 3D. It's still there, but it's not like everyone needs a 3D movie.
There's not as much 3D releases now, so it seems.
Yeah. I will say this though. This takes me back to something that the late great Bill Paxton said. He said of James Cameron, he said, phrases like "that can't be done" give him an erection, And what could be more "that can't be done" than making 4 sequels to a movie there's such huge backlash against? I think I have even as someone who's kind of ambivalent towards Avatar, I'm excited because I feel like yeah, it's a tall order, but then again, so was, making a Terminator sequel for a much huger budget that the original didn't seem to justify way late in the game. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, you gotta be wondering what he has under his sleeve because he's
I'll
he has
see
a
the
reputation.
Avatar sequel.
Yeah,
I will.
Me too. Yeah.
He has a reputation for pulling out surprises out of nowhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Cameron knows what he's doing, man.
Absolutely.
I'll fully admit to that.
I don't think he would devote so much of his time to it if he didn't believe in it.
No.
There's got to be something going on.
And if there's one thing that guy knows, it's belief, because he believes in what he does to an almost scary degree.
He's got clout enough that he can do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah.
So
that's
I
true.
kind of want to see what he wants to do. Like, I'll trash on Peter Jackson's The Hobbit, but I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw just him cutting loose and playing around with his toys.
Yeah. And never did I doubt that was coming from a place that he really genuinely wanted to do it. And
he absolutely wanted to do that. He just wanted to hang out in Hobbiton and spend like $300 million on an army of orcs.
Well, who can blame him?
Because why wouldn't you?
All right, you guys ready for my big list?
Go for it.
As I said, 31 movies, but I completed some of them. Anytime it was a series or a trilogy, I counted them as one. So,
all right.
And then again, this is this is favorites. So obviously, this is a subjective thing.
Okay.
But Lost in Translation,
cool.
X2, the Spider-Man trilogy, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the third, fourth, and fifth Harry Potter films, The Fountain, Superman Returns,
Really?
Two Lovers. Yes,
Okay, I'm gonna question that one. Okay.
Well, we can talk about Superman Returns for a second.
All right. Superman Returns holds up on rewatch because Batman v Superman exists, and it's like, no, we're gonna have a Superman movie where he smiles and he saves people and he doesn't grouse about things all movie. But Superman Returns suffers from a very similar problem to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman in that it feels the need to justify Superman's existence. And the crux of the movie is Superman justifying his return to Lois Lane, which seems ridiculous to me, knowing that the core of the Superman mythos is Superman and Lois Lane. Like, if you don't have that, you don't have a good Superman story. What is your rebuttal?
All right. I once did a video about this that was so long it had to be posted in 2 installments. But I'll try to keep things briefer here. Superman Returns is not just about Superman. It is about a very specific Superman. It is about the Superman of the Christopher Reeve films, and Brandon Routh, in fact, imitates him, who is a very specific kind of character. He's not an anguished, punch people in the face character. He is a peaceful, chivalrous, decent, mellow guy who's very, very, very pure of heart and very old-fashioned and kind of dated. And the movie embraces that and doesn't run from that. And the movie has Superman be gone for 5 years. And has him come back and has him not quite fit into this world when he returns. But here's the thing: you can't just take this story at face value because it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for how the Christopher Reeve Superman fits in pop culture, and it's asking the question: can that kinder, more compassionate, less angsty Superman, can he fit into a world where, even a hero who is as much of a goody two-shoes as Spider-Man is pushing people through windows, like in Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film.
Good question.
And it's really dealing with that question and dealing with it, I think, in a beautiful way, because the action sequences in that movie are just stunning. Like that plane sequence and the way Bryan Singer, the way he builds up to it so skillfully, builds the suspense of really waiting for the big moment when Brandon Routh rips open his shirt and you see the Superman symbol. It's so beautifully told, the whole thing. It's so poetic. But then what really makes the movie for me is how they answer this question of does the world need not just a Superman, but this Superman, this Christopher Reeve type Superman? And what the movie says is maybe not. Maybe he doesn't fit into this world because Lois Lane has moved on just as the world has moved on. But at the end, you find out Superman has a son. And at the end, he repeats the same words to his son that his father said to him. He says, the son becomes the father becomes the son. And that is really his way of saying, I no longer matter as I used to. I want to matter, I want to be a part of the world, but the world has moved on. But just because I no longer matter in the same way doesn't mean that I don't have something to offer. And he's doing that by passing it on to his son, passing it on to his wisdom, his kindness, his compassion on to the next generation. And there was talk of a Superman Returns sequel, in fact, which was, funnily enough, going to be called Man of Steel, but it would never have worked because the point of Superman was the story, not of Superman, but that particular Superman. It's over. he's done. He no longer fits. But he does have something to offer us. And that movie was Bryan Singer saying, don't dismiss this Superman. Because, people say, oh, Superman never throws a punch. That's so terrible. That's what makes the movie, because it's showing a different side of Superman, a more peaceful character. And, Bryan Singer is saying, even though this character no longer fits, take a look at him. See what he has to offer. Learn from him. He doesn't matter as much. But that doesn't mean you can't take something from him and incorporate it into this world. So there you have it.
You just like it when franchises end, don't you?
I do like it when franchises end because they don't have meaning unless they end. If it goes on forever, there's no emotional stakes, and I admire a definitive ending because life has a definitive ending, and I think you can't really. I think you got to reckon with mortality to a certain degree if you're going to make a great film, But
what's the line from the Avengers? A thing isn't beautiful because it lasts.
Yes. Well, who says that? Who says that?
That was the Vision in Age of Ultron.
Yes. I agree with Vision 100%, and I think he'd be a very good film critic. Do you guys want to hear the rest of the list?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
Yes. Detour over.
Two Lovers, Star Trek, the first J.J. Abrams one, The Dreamers, Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knight trilogy, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, La La Land, La Vida del Chapitre 1 et 2, sorry about my bad French, a.k.a. Blue is the Warmest Color, The Bourne trilogy, of course excluding Legacy and Jason Bourne, Napoleon Dynamite, Arrival, Mirror Mask, To the Wonder, American Dreams, In Good Company, The Family Man, Knight of Cups, Spy Kids, Drive, Shame, The Illusionist, Juno, and The Tree of Life, and that's all I got.
Spy Kids?
I love Spy Kids, yeah.
Explain.
Okay. I mean, this you have to keep in mind that why this list is varies so widely is because I was obviously quite young in 2000 or 2001 was when Spy Kids came out, and so it's on there for nostalgic reasons because I watched that movie as a young kid and it made me happy. I had fun. It moved me, and if there's I think sometimes I can be too harsh and say, oh, I like that movie then, but it's crap now, and I'm slowly trying to get out of that mindset of not judging my younger self for liking
bad
something.
Things.
Yeah, and I don't think Spy Kids is bad, but
it's an okay movie.
But it contributed something to my life, and it made me happy. And
so it's a more personal thing.
It is a more personal thing, and
okay.
Honestly, I think that makes it just as valuable to me as something like The Social Network that is as rich and is more complicated. Because I think something makes you happy. How can you argue with that? Honestly,
Right.
Unless some Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End makes you happy, and then. I don't know what to say.
I guess it made me satisfied because it had an ending.
Yeah, that's true. Fair point. Touche.
What's the criteria for this list? Is just like the best movies in the last.
Just my favorites of the 21st century.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's favorites, then that's going to affect that would affect my list. Most of the movies when we did our top 10 list, most of mine were from the past decade and change.
Yeah, most of mine were too, and you made a really good point that we like movies that came out after we were born because they're made for our era.
Like the oldest one on my list, I think, was still The Producers, which was in '69 or '68, and Lebowski was 97.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And I think the rest of them were all post 2000. So.
Well, the oldest one on my list was The Empire Strikes Back, and I don't think of that as an old movie by any stretch of the imagination.
That's the other line from Civil War, where Spider-Man calls that old movie The Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Which that line bugs me. There is a timelessness to Star Wars that you have to acknowledge.
Yeah. You could argue that kind of the state of things sort of began with Star Wars because it kind of in Jaws sort of created the mega picture mentality.
Oh, yeah. Kyle Colgren, one of my favorites. He did a video where it's like the cinematic impact of Star Wars in 1977 cannot be overstated. When it came out, it was like a bolt of lightning, and since then, cinema has somewhat been viewed as pre-Star Wars and post-Star Wars. Yeah. And so what he ended up doing was he retold the story of Star Wars using clips from movies that are not Star Wars. And it's about 20 minutes.
That's great. That's
I suggest you go look it up.
I will. That sounds really cool.
Brows Held High, Star Wars. And it's pulling from all over the place. And there's old Flash Gordon serials and samurai movies and stuff. But there's also all these sci-fi movies where you see the same kind of stuff. Not just sci-fi, but fantasy, but comedies, but action, all this stuff. And it's like, it all links back to Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, look, every, franchise now has to have, like, a Luke, I am your father kind of moment of temptation. Like, even the Green Goblin tried that in Spider-Man back on Sam Raimi's movie, and
yeah.
Although
you got Joseph Campbell.
Who would join the Green Goblin? Yeah, Joseph Campbell. Yeah.
Well, he seems like such a fun guy.
He's got a great mask to wear to parties. So. All right, do you guys have any final thoughts before we sign off?
This devolved into another conversation about movies we liked, so par for the course.
Par for the course. And a very fun course, I might add.
I really do like this year for movies so far.
I like it
because it's been interesting stuff. There's certainly some duds, there always are, but it's been solid, and I'm looking forward to what's coming. I'm looking forward to stuff like Baby Driver and Atomic Blonde, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Because it seems like really interesting stuff. Yeah. And I think that was part of what was missing from last year. So I'm down for it. I'm here for it.
Patrick, any final thoughts?
I gotta actually watch movies so that I can have a better feel for what this year is like.
No, you brought some good insights.
I think aside from Trainspotting, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this year. So
the year's just getting started. Let's face it.
It's
going to be a glut of Oscar stuff.
We're not yet through the summer blockbusters and the Oscars.
Exactly. The latter half.
The best is yet to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
They all come out, exactly. And we got a new Star Wars coming out. I think that's what I'm looking forward to.
Which had a really great trailer, by the way.
Oh yeah, they know how to sell these.
Yeah.
They got it down to the science.
Okay, well, I wanted to end this with a quote that I wanted to read last time when we did our podcast about the ethics of film criticism, but I think it fits in here because we're looking at the movies so far this year, so it's a good time to take in stock of what it means to do what we do. So this is by a great writer I love named Paul Rudnick, who writes in the persona of Libby Gelman-Waxner, who is an assistant buyer in Juniors' activewear, who's also a film critic. And this she's in this little article. She's hanging out with a friend who tells her she wants to be a film critic, and this is what happens. Debbie, her friend is Debbie. I grabbed Debbie by her somewhat meaty upper arm and dragged her right back into the Cineplex, where we saw the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, so what did you think? I demanded in the lobby afterwards as we purchased emergency goobers, just in case during the movie the Goobers company had suddenly gone under. I thought the movie was a charming fable, Debbie decided. Although I got worried when the talking lion sacrificed himself for the good of others and became a Jesus figure. I mean, it's one thing for animated lions to sing Elton John ballads in Disney movies, but I don't want to have to think about Simba on the cross. Congratulations, I declared. You have now said something deeply personal, irrational, and possibly offensive. You're a film critic. And I can't think of a better note to end things on, so thank you all for listening. Remember, if you like this podcast, click thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out all the content. We've got THO movie reviews.wordpress.com. When am I going to get that right? Someday.
By that point, we'll have changed the name again.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook. And once again, I'm Bennett Campbell Ferguson, here with Mo Shaunette and Patrick Belin. And from all of us here at THO Movie Reviews, happy movie watching.
Bye.